Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with Jon Morgan!
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with Jon Morgan. I am your host, Eric McMahon, fresh off the heels of just a dominant performance at UFC 285. Jon Jones reigns supreme, not in the light heavyweight division anymore, as the heavyweight champion of the world. A man who was in attendance that night because I saw his blue shirt. Jon Morgan, what's up, pal?
I'm good, man. It really was a big night, man. It had that big fight feel, man. You know, it's just Jon Jones is back after 3 years away. He's going up a division. T-Mobile Arena is packed out. All the VIPs in there. I mean, Las Vegas was buzzing. It was a great night of fights, man. It really was. And it was capped off by some pretty incredible performances, some pretty incredible results.
The fight card I said last week is like, from top to bottom, it might not be the strongest, but it ended up being a great card. I had a lot of fun just watching the card. But we have to obviously start with Jon Jones. I made a prediction last week on this show. I said Jon Jones is going to come across that cage. He's going to get the takedown. He's going to, and then Ciryl Gane isn't going to get up. It's going to happen possibly in the second. More likely, in my opinion, it would have happened in the third round. It happened in under 2 minutes, Jon Morgan. What is the legacy and the greatness of Jon Jones? And did anybody see it happening that easy?
I sure didn't, because I'll be honest with you, I kind of echoed your sentiments that I leaned towards Jon Jones. And I understood why a lot of people were picking Ciryl Gane, but I think a lot of people just kind of forgot who Jon Jones was, maybe didn't necessarily live through the entire career and watch what he was capable of and understand just how good his wrestling is. And it's that clinch wrestling. It's that chain wrestling where it's really hard. You know, there's some guys that have a really good shot, but you defend the shot, you reset, you're fine. That's not what Jon Jones does, right? He gets in the clinch. Now he's grabbing your wrist. Now he's hooking your leg. Now it's just nonstop, like clinch work and kind of chain wrestling, difficult type stuff. So I favor Jon Jones, but I'm going to be honest with you, man. Official weigh-ins on Friday, I saw Ciryl Gane get on the scale, and I was like, whoa, he looks to be in phenomenal shape. Then he stepped in the cage on Saturday night, and I'm just a few feet away because obviously, you know, he's in the blue corner. He's on my side of the cage. I'm like, my goodness, Ciryl Gane looks huge. And even though I had picked Jon Jones all along, I started getting a little bit worried. I'm like, man, if he clips him, this could be problems. And, you know, Jon came out, and I would say didn't necessarily look phenomenal on the feet in terms of movement. It looked a little, he kind of admitted afterwards, he felt a little weird, a little stiff. But, man, once he got into that clinch, drove the action to the canvas, and you could tell, man, he just the superior wrestler. I didn't see it happening as fast as it did, but my goodness, shocked the world. Tap out, 2 minutes, 4 seconds. Unbelievable.
Jon Jones is the GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
You can't deny it. We talked, is Fader the GOAT? Is he the greatest like of all time? Is Anderson Silva the greatest of all time? It's not up for discussion anymore. It is not up for discussion. But I want to go back into the fight because what you said, I was feeling. I was so confident all week Jon Jones was going to make this look easy. And then I started watching the weigh-ins. Gave me a little bit of doubt, but I'm still ultra confident. Then the pure like nonchalantness Ciryl Gane had walking to the octagon, getting in the octagon. And I said, man, I'm really second guessing my bet right now. I'm second guessing like all the advice I gave to everybody. Take Jon Jones, second round or third round TKO, prop bet it, do this. Like Jon Jones is going to stop him under championship rounds. And everybody was calling me crazy. And as the fight was about to get started, I just said, man, I may have given a lot of people a lot of bad advice. And then Jon Jones does Jon Jones.
It was amazing. But that's what made this fight so fun, walking, you know, just going in knowing that, like, there is some unknown, if the valuations that you just can't make because we haven't seen Jon in 3 years. We haven't seen him at heavyweight. We don't know what it's going to happen. You can't liken it back to everything else that you've seen. And that's what made this so intriguing, man. That electricity was in the air. But then, as you said, Jon Jones did Jon Jones and he said coming into it, I'm going to make it look easy. And when we talked to UFC President Dana White afterwards, and he said, bro, I heard him saying that, and I didn't think that was a very wise thing to say, but he did pretty much make it look easy. And I don't mean that to insult Ciryl Gane. I mean, Ciryl Gane, credit to him, he came and talked to us afterwards, and he was really dejected and was just like, man, this is the first real loss I've ever had. The Ngannou thing I thought was awfully close. I thought it was wrong. This one I lost. I'm going to go back in the gym immediately and fix my deficiencies. But Jon Jones just absolutely dominated out there. And, I thought he was the greatest of all time coming in. I know that some people don't like to say that simply because I think they don't like what Jon Jones has done outside of the cage, and that's why they don't call him the GOAT. But if you just take what happens once that octagon door closes, I just don't see how you argue that he's not the greatest of all time, especially after doing this.
The crowd response that Jon Jones got, he was a very heelish figure. For the better part of the last third of his career up until the break, he was the heel. And I swear people are sheep, myself included, right? I'm like, I don't like what Jon Jones stands for. He had the domestic assault. He had the driving under the influence. He had the drug, the performance enhancing. He had all of this. And then just like any wrestler who goes away after injury, has surgery, whatever, they're gone for a while. They come back, the crowd goes nuts. I was so excited to see Jon Jones. And I'm like, and like the humbleness that he had all week was just so refreshing. The humbleness, yet confidence. Yep. He wasn't that cocky, jerk like he was against DC in those matches. He wasn't that. And it was such a breath of fresh air. And man, I am a Jon Jones fan. I've always respected him and considered like if not one of the greatest. But now with his demeanor, how he was acting all week in this media, how can't you not like that guy for the perceived changes that he has made in his life?
Yeah, look, he's 35 years old at this point, and I think at some point you got to think you're going to grow up a little bit. You're going to mature a little bit, and it feels like this is real. I was talking to Kevin Iole, who's obviously been covering the game for a long time as well, and we've covered all of Jon's career, and it is kind of nervous to say that, a little scary to say that, oh, I think he's changed, I think he's matured, because he's had so many mistakes along the way, and he comes back and says, hey, man, I apologize. I realize, I learned my lesson from it, and then something else happens, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Did you really change? Did you really learn your lesson? But it does feel different this time around for exactly all the reasons you said, the way he was carrying himself, the way he was handling himself, the way he was speaking. But you talked about that crowd response, Eric. It was that press conference on Thursday, unbelievable, man. The Ka Theater at the MGM Grand was packed. Absolutely packed, which is just cool to see a huge crowd like that. But when he stepped on stage, man, the crowd lost their mind. And I suddenly realized exactly what you're saying. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Because I thought maybe people kind of forgotten who Jon was or, didn't like him or whatever the case may be. And we're holding all his things against him finally. But no, it was like, no, this dude is a star. And man, he carried himself well in the fight. Immediately comes out afterwards and says, I want to fight Stipe Miocic. This dude, I don't know. I feel like he nailed everything all fight week long. And I just don't get the arguments against him being the greatest of all time. I feel like if you say he's not the GOAT, it's just because you don't like Jon Jones and you're not going to admit that he's just that damn good.
What's his record? Something and one, and that one is not. I don't know this record. How many wins?
27-1, and we all know that one is not a one.
Yeah, so let's call him 28. No, ask Matt Hamill who won that fight. Right?
Absolutely. 100%. And obviously he has the no contest in there as well that was overturned by the commission. So, you could say he's 29-0, which I know another guy that was 29-0, and people hold him in pretty high regards.
Ciryl Gane has taken a little bit of a beating for the way this fight unfolded. One, we knew the wrestling deficiencies were going to be there against Jon Jones. Now, the wrestling deficiencies, you can pile on Ciryl Gane for this, because to get just dragged to the ground like that was a little mind-blowing to me. Like, Jon Jones literally just He didn't take him down. He didn't put a hook in to drag him. He literally just like dragged him to the ground, which kind of shocked me. But for a lot of people, and even Daniel Cormier at the time, he's like, what did he tap from? What did he tap for? I saw it right away, right? And it's a mounted guillotine, but he hit a mounted guillotine from a sitting position. And for anybody who's never been in that position, it's terrifying, one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it's not necessarily a choke, right? I call it a panic choke because if you keep it there, it's not like you're going to go unconscious. It's almost right on the Adam's apple, but it's crunching your head down. And simultaneously, Jon Jones has his blade of his arm on his Adam's apple, crunching his head down while simultaneously putting so much pressure on the diaphragm where you might not be getting blood choked, but there is no way you can physically take a breath. And that's why I call it a panic choke. And if anybody has never been in that position with that much torque coming down on your head and that much pressure going into your diaphragm where you physically cannot inhale, you could probably exhale, but you can't inhale. And and that's why I call it a panic choke. And so Ciryl Gane for getting choked out that way, and people saying like, well, what happened? It was as legit gets.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. It is very painful, but it is something that if you can deal with, you can outlast it. But it's terrifying. As you said, it's a very scary situation, especially against a guy like Jon Jones. And you're not in an athletic position at that point. Like you're seated in such a way that you don't really even feel like you can defend yourself properly at that point. And you've got Jon Jones' entire body weight hanging on your neck. So, I completely understand it. I won't fault him for the tap, but man, it was heartbreaking. You could see him afterwards, man, just completely dejected. If you go back and watch it, like he stayed in that seated position for quite a while. His coach, Fernando Lopez, came and talked to him. Again, he did come back to the media, and I asked him, I said, hey, man, first of all, props to him for coming back, man. I know it's not fun to go back after a loss like that, but I asked him, I said, what was the most frustrating part of it? Is it that you didn't even really get an opportunity to strike? Was it more about the fact that you thought your defensive wrestling would hold up a little better? And he was just like, all of it, man. Absolutely all of it.
The above.
All the above. It was everything. And he's like, I'm frustrated. I'm upset. And I'm going to fix this, and this is going to make me a better fighter. So, unfortunate for Ciryl. Your heart kind of goes out to him. I mean, this dude in his last fight was fighting in his hometown of Paris, and he was the hometown hero, being carried on the shoulders of everybody out there. And then he comes to Las Vegas, and he was getting booed all week. I mean, Jon Jones was clearly the hero there. And then he goes out and, I hate to say it, but kind of gets embarrassed, right? I mean, that was a very one-sided fight, and I think it was a very frustrating one for him, but that's Jon Jones. That's what Jon Jones does. Jon Jones has the ability to do that to anyone in the game.
I don't have the statistics in front of me, but by my count, there was one significant strike in that fight, and it was to Jon Jones's nads.
That is true, right? I mean, come on, the one strike you get a chance to throw is to go out there and hit him right in the groin right off the top.
Yeah, so I can't say I'm surprised that Jon Jones won. I can say I'm utterly surprised in the utter dominant fashion. I personally all week thought he was going to dominate Ciryl Gane, even though to me it was still the harder matchup for him stylistically. But for anybody to say they predicted that, and it just goes to the greatness of this guy. And I mean, Jon Jones, I think everybody had the same reaction. Like, oh, he looking a little soft. Looking a little soft in that belly, but you know what? I forgot who said like appearances mean nothing in this game.
It's we joke about it all the time. It's those beach muscles, right? Like they look good when you're walking on the beach, man, but they don't necessarily help you win a fight. I mean, not to say that a fighter shouldn't strive to have a nice physique or just the result of his work in the gym won't give him a nice physique. But you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And Jon talked about that ahead of time. It was actually kind of funny. The media day, he was like, yeah, the thing that sucks about moving up to heavyweight is I lost my six-pack. He's like, but my functional strength, and he started talking about his squat numbers and his press numbers. And he's like, my functional strength is through the roof. He's like, but I don't look as good on the scale. I kind of lost my six-pack. It was funny. I waited till the cameras were off, but I told him afterwards, I was like, bro, I lost my six-pack too. Don't worry about it, man. We're still peak performers. This
is what a true athlete looks like.
These are true athletes, John. Me and you know, Jon Jones. And you know what it's like.
Struggle is real, man. Perception is not reality in this game.
So true.
Now, The biggest upset of the night clearly happened in the co-main event. And who would have guessed this? If I recall correctly, Valentina Shevchenko was like a minus 800 favorite on this fight, but Alexa Grasso does it. She comes through with probably, and I don't have statistics in front of me, the biggest upset in championship history. I don't know what Matt Serra GSP was, but I can't think it was 800 to 1 or a plus 800 or minus 800. I can't think it was that. And Alexa Grasso came out, and in that first round, she hurt Shevchenko. She buckled her. She wobbed her. We knew she had great boxing. We've seen some submissions out of Grasso, but we knew she had great boxing. But to take the back the way she did and lock up a rear naked choke, which really wasn't a rear naked choke. I mean, we see the striations and the color differentiation on her jaw. John Morgan, you were there. I can ramble about it all day. Take it from there, man.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, just a phenomenal result. And to add on to what you say about being a big upset, I think Grasso by submission was like plus 2,000. I mean, because you think about Alexa Grasso, we say, phenomenal boxer. What do we say going into this? Hey, Valentina's going to win, but it's probably going to be a fun fight because Alexa Grasso can strike and she's going to make this fun. But, she's more of a pure boxer, and to try to outstrike Valentina is going to be tough. Valentina's grappling game is probably going to be better. And to be honest with you, it kind of was. I mean, Alexa Grasso won that opening round, and then Valentina kind of made the adjustment and said, okay, wait a minute. Looks like Alexa's a little faster than I thought she was going to be. Maybe her hands are a little better than I thought she would be. Let's turn to the grappling because we know she's not as good in that department. And it was working. She was getting nice takedowns. She was dominating positions. She claims round 2. She claims round 3. And then we come into round 4, and Valentina, as Valentina does, had been throwing these spinning strikes along the way. She'll throw spinning kicks, maybe an occasional spinning back fist, but she does spin quite a lot, and not necessarily setting it up first, not like a jab spin or something like that. She just comes off the top. And Alexa said afterwards, we trained that and we were ready for that. And boy, if she didn't, man, Valentina spun, Alexa hopped the back, and it was beautiful. I was actually showing my son yesterday the replay. I was like, look at this. Look how quick the hooks come in. The hooks are in immediately to hold her in place. And now she's got the choke in place. And as you said, didn't get under the neck, but had it on the chin and did exactly what you do. Wrap it up, pull that hand behind the head and hide it behind your own chin so that there's no reaching back and grabbing it. And you saw the squeeze in there. It was actually, it was funny, the night of, I'm sitting there cage side. My wife was watching it at home, and she shot me a text of a picture of the screen because I couldn't see it live, of that, the coloration changes where you can see how all the blood had been pressed out of that chin area. And I mean, unbelievable squeeze and an unbelievable result. And it's such a cool moment because Alexa Grasso has been grinding to get here, and it's such a unique thing to see her not only claim a title, but to do it by taking out one of the GOATs. I mean, Valentina Shevchenko, definitely one of the greatest to ever do it in the women's division. And now you've got 3 different Mexican-born fighters holding titles all at the same time, just as the UFC is about to open a performance institute in Mexico City. I mean, MMA is booming in Mexico right now. It was just a cool result for so many different reasons.
And the setup for that, let's call it what it is. Like, it's a crank, right?
Right.
It's essentially a crank, but a la Khabib Nurmagomedov beat Conor McGregor the same exact way. The slight difference is that Grasso then one-upped it, right? So she was trying to get underneath the throat, couldn't, and changed to the gable grip crowbar, which really put the pressure in, and it just gave her that 1 inch she needed to then slap that hand behind the head and hide it. Khabib never even got it there. He finished from that crowbar stance. But when that happened, when she got that gable grip, I then jumped out of my seat, and I had a couple people over my house, and I said, this could be over right here. Yep. This could be over, because immediately, Shevchenko was here when that crowbar happened. She then tried to get them both underneath just to relieve the pressure. I jumped out of my seat and I said, this could be over. This could be over. Then the hand went behind the back of the head. And it took what? A second or two once that happened?
It's such a great, and that's exactly what I was showing my son. I'm like, look, when you get to that arena, because he rolls and is learning jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, you get to that position and sometimes you get that choke in and you can't get it and you don't understand why. I'm like, look at the tension that this presses. Once you get that adjustment made, like that adds in all the squeeze to it. And I was the same as you. As soon as she got, because man, she got those hooks in quick, and as you said, right to that gable grip. And at that point, I just looked up at the clock and I was like, like is Valentina gonna be able to hold on? Because it was so locked in at that point that I thought, I think all she can do is try to last till the bell. I mean, you saw her desperately trying to push it up, couldn't do that. Once the hand was hidden, there was no peeling it down. And it was amazing. And it was crazy because it's one of those situations where Alexa was really fighting well. But I know a lot of people are going to come out of this and say, well, Valentina didn't look that great last time out. Maybe she didn't look that great here. Maybe she's done. Maybe she's fading. I didn't see it that way, to be honest with you. I thought it was two high-level fighters. Yes, Valentina's a little older right now. Maybe she's not quite as fast as Grasso, but I didn't think she was fighting a bad fight. She just made one mistake. And I don't even know if you can call it a mistake. It was just she did one thing that her opponent was prepared to see her do and capitalized on the counter perfectly.
To me, what made this such an unbelievable victory for Grasso, aside from the fact that she beat Shevchenko, that in itself. But after the first round, you saw the margin start getting bigger and bigger. The second round was clearly Shevchenko. The third round was clearly Shevchenko. She started busting up Grasso. And Grasso, and it's that just, I think, it's a trait of these Mexican-born fighters. There is a never say die, a never quit. We are going to we are going to be go out on our shield. We are going to stay in this firefight. And it was inspiring to watch.
It really was. And Alexa talked about that in the week leading up to it. We asked, because I talked to her. I'm like, look, the thing is, when you have a dominant champion like that, as you're making your way up the ranks, you're still keeping an eye on the champion too, especially when it's somebody that dominates the division. She had 7 title defenses. If you're a contender, you're thinking about your next fight, but you're always thinking a little bit, if I got to that title fight, how would I beat that champ? That long reigning champ. And so we talked to Alexa about it. She's like, listen, Valentina is phenomenal, but I'm going to have that heart. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to give everything I have until the very end. And she did exactly that. And it's just an amazing result. And I actually asked Alexa after the fight, I'm like, listen, because Valentina said, I want a rematch right away. Now, if you're Alexa, do you say, I'm sorry, I beat you, like I'm moving on, but, I'll take somebody else. This was a pretty tough fight. I'll look at somebody else's division. And I love it. You talk about that heart and that will. And Alexa was like, absolutely. She was a dominant champion. I'll be more than happy to fight her again. And I think that's an admirable attitude to be like, I know I just beat you, but I also realize how great you are and what you did for this division. And I'm more than happy to give you that shot again. I think it's cool. And I hope it happens in Mexico City. I mean, like I said, you've got 3 champions right now in Brandon Moreno, Yair Rodriguez, interim title in Yair Rodriguez, but still a champion nonetheless. And now Alexa Grasso as well. And if you could take at least 2 of them and put them on a pay-per-view event down in Mexico to kind of coincide with the opening of that Performance Institute, I mean, what an incredible event that would be.
Mutual friend of ours, Jason Liederfine, put a post up on, I think it was Saturday night after the fights, and he said, Mexico has more UFC champions than Dagestan.
That's pretty wild to think about, but it's true. And it was unthinkable not that long ago, man. The way the sport has progressed there is incredible. Dana actually talked about it afterwards. He said, from the time we started this thing, I always knew how great the history of Mexican boxers were. And if we could get mixed martial arts to catch on there, I know that the country would, produce a lot of phenomenal athletes. And that's what the Performance Institute is going to do down there as well, is to continue to help identify athletes and train them in mixed martial arts. But what a cool time for Mexican MMA right now. It is that is pretty spectacular. That's a pretty good stat too, man. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? So now moving back down the card just a little bit, Rakhmonov remains unbeaten in unquestionably the fight of the night, albeit probably a little more tested than anybody thought against Jeff Neal.
Absolutely. Phenomenal fight. I mean, this fight, watching this was so much fun because it was just mixed martial arts at its finest. I mean, you were watching 2 high-level athletes, going toe-to-toe, throwing down. And the fight was so good that Dana White called it the fight of the night. And even though Jeff Neal missed weight, which normally precludes you from getting a bonus, that's a punishment the UFC says. If you miss weight, you are no longer bonus eligible. Dana White said, this fight was so good, I'm paying the man his $50,000 anyway, even though he missed weight. So unbelievable fight. And now you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's up there as 17-0 with 17 finishes. That is insane. I don't care who you're fighting. That is insane. And called out Colby Covington. I mean, I don't know if that's the fight they'll make, but that's the type of fight that he's deserving at this point, is that upper echelon, that top tier of the division.
But then in the press conference afterwards, he calls for a title shot against the winner of Usman Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards. So
I mean, you got to throw it out there. Right?
The landscape that we're in that welterweight division, we don't know what is going on with Colby Covington. I mean, do you?
We don't. So Dana said, look, Colby is ready to fight. It's good. Because I think a lot of us are worried, this whole legal thing that's going on with Jorge Masvidal, does that preclude him from fighting? And Dana said, Colby is ready to fight. We were trying to put some things together. It didn't quite work out. So it sounds like Colby is ready to go. There was a lot of talk of Colby and Khamzat Chimaev putting that fight together, but it sounds like Khamzat Chimaev is going up to 185 pounds, which seems to be the smart move. I mean, the cuts down to 170 were really proving difficult for him. So if that's the case, I mean, look,
I'd say missing weight by 9 pounds proves it difficult.
That's kind of difficult. You got names like Bilal Muhammad in there, of course. I mean, Gilbert Burns, perennial contender as well. I struggle to think that Shavkat is going to jump past all those. I don't blame a guy for saying I want a title shot. I mean, at least get your name in that discussion as like somebody that's deserving. It's like, Erin Blanchfield coming out and saying she wants a title shot. Not a bad idea to come out and say, at least get your name in the discussion, but I don't think he's going to get a title shot next, but I do think, those upper echelon names right there, that's who he'll fight next, and maybe that's a number one contender type fight.
I would like to see Muhammad and Rakhmonov title eliminator fight. Ooh, but if you didn't know Rakhmonov before Saturday night, you sure as hell know him now.
Yep.
And he is a must-watch fighter. He was getting blasted on and never got out of the pocket ever.
Unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Because I honestly thought, look, to be honest with breaking this down, I thought, man, maybe his wrestling is going to be the case. The grappling is really what's going to get it done, because I was a little bit worried if he tried to stand toe-to-toe with Jeff Neal over the course of 3 rounds, Jeff was going to catch him at something. They call him hands of steel for a reason. My man's got power. But he stood right in the pocket, took those shots, and battled right back, and then ultimately just got that kind of schoolyard submission, big brother submission, where it's like, we're not setting this up. We're just wrapping your neck and squeezing and seeing what happens. And man, as you said, I felt like this was a big kind of coming out party for a lot of people that maybe hadn't seen the Fight Night cards that Shavkat was on. The hardcore community had been singing his praises for a long time. This had been the guy that people were saying, "Ooh, watch this man, watch this man." But I agree. I think this was the moment the general public, probably looked up and said, "Ooh, I need to watch this guy moving forward."
Closing odds on Bo Nickel came to minus 2,200. I texted you as the main card started, and I said, it's at minus 2,200 right now. I've never seen that. And then the fight starts, and it goes the way we think it is. But Jamie Pickett is griping. He's wanting to get it overturned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission to a no contest due to an illegal groin shot, which led to the takedown, which led to the eventual head and arm choke. 1, he's never going to win that appeal.
Nope.
2, it's a very smart move so he doesn't get cut by the UFC. 3, he's clearly got nut shotted. I don't think it was going to make a difference in the fight, but if you watch this back, like I did, he clearly takes a shot, maybe in the groin region. Let's just say that. The minute the strike happens, he closes his legs. Bo Nickel then uses that like waist / ankle or knee pick to just drag him down, and it was academic from there. Opinions?
I think it's an interesting one, right? Because on the one hand, we saw a little bit about why everybody is so high on Bo Nickel, right? I mean, bright lights, big stage. He didn't look uncomfortable. He went in there, he executed, he did what he was supposed to do. But he did show some things that are a little bit questionable as well, right? Like, it took him a long time to set up that arm triangle choke, and he wasn't necessarily doing it properly. It wasn't doing it the most efficient way possible. Now, he eventually got it. He made a nice adjustment, too, with his hand positioning as well, which was pretty slick that got him to finish. But it took him a long time to really set in on it. He was a little too high on it. I mean, look, I'm going to sit here and criticize from the outside.
You know what? I was yelling. You got to go ear to ear. You got to go ear to ear.
Exactly. So at least a little bit. And listen, I will say this about that knee immediately after the fight was over, because I didn't see it in real time, to be honest with you. I didn't see the knee. But immediately I started getting some DMs from people that were sending me like video clips. And I'll be honest with you, when you watch that replay back, yeah, I think it was a little bit of a groin strike. Now, Bo was asked about it afterwards, when he did his post-fight press scrum, and he was like, I didn't hit him in the groin. Now, is it because he knows for a fact he didn't, or just because heat of the moment, you don't really feel it?
Watched it back yet.
At that point, he definitely hadn't watched it back. I mean, that's immediately after. So maybe he just didn't know. Like, I don't think Bo's a dirty fighter, or I don't think he was, he knew he threw a foul and was trying to lie and say he didn't. I just think he didn't watch it back. When I watched the tape, it does look like he may have landed that knee to the groin. Now, what kind of impact it had, I don't know, but it did look like it landed. But to your initial point, that's never getting overturned. But I don't blame Jamie Pickett for at least bringing some attention to it and saying, hey, listen, by the way, and he did. I mean, you could see, and I didn't know what he was complaining about. After he tapped out, he got up immediately and went over to his corner and was kind of like, and he was complaining about something, and I didn't know what it was. But I'm guessing that was it. It's like, how did the referee not see that? So I thought it was a good performance for Bo Nickel. I think it leaves enough question marks that maybe there's some little intrigue next time. And I think that's a good, right? Because it seems like a lot of people are either A, that dude is every part a future champion, which I tend to believe he is, or there's people who are like, this dude is overblown. And this performance is going to give those haters a little bit of reason to be like, he never would have won if he hadn't kneed him in the groin. But you know what that means? People want to tune in to watch him fight, because whether they love him or they hate him, they want to see one result or the other. So it's an interesting start of the career for Bo Nickel.
I got to go back to Jon Jones now. Okay. He sets up what I would consider a mega fight. What I would consider a fight, maybe not of the century. I'll call it a fight of the quarter century. The greatest heavyweight champion of all time. Stipe Miocic, most title defenses in UFC heavyweight history, has basically agreed, has wanted this Jon Jones fight for a while. And Jon Jones, to his credit, acknowledges that Stipe was the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, which I love to hear him say that. And he's saying, and I want him, not because I'm going to do this or that, or he's a jerk or this, and not this smug, arrogant Jon Jones. He acknowledged that Stipe was the man, and he wants the man. As Ric Flair to say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Jon Jones considers Stipe the man. And what I loved was Stipe in this position. He didn't stand up and start John. He didn't try and get in the cage. Stipe, you watched this man like you watched a flip switch in him in real time. And he was just eyes beaded, stoic. And then when Megan, the UFC commentator, she interviewed Stipe right after, she couldn't even get words out. He's like, yes, I want it.
I love it. I cannot wait for this fight to come together. I know Joe Rogan mentioned in the cage, maybe summertime International Fight Week. Jon Jones doesn't normally turn around that quickly, so I'm a little hesitant to say that'll happen, but it would be the perfect platform for International Fight Week, Las Vegas, July. But I love the fight. Damage. Took no damage whatsoever, so it's possible. It is possible. Now, a couple things I'll say. First off, you're absolutely right about Stipe Miocic, most title defenses in UFC heavyweight history. Now, granted, that number is 3, so it's not like one of those way out there records, but it's still the most. It just goes to show you how volatile the division is at heavyweight, that nobody can get more than 3 defenses in a row, because you're talking about everybody in there with massive knockout power. And I love the fact that Jon Jones, says, hey, I believe I am the greatest of all time, but he's the greatest heavyweight of all time for that title defense record. I want to beat him. And then what will they, because I am seeing some people come out, in the days since this amazing performance at UFC 285, is saying, well, okay, he moved up to heavyweight, but he beat Ciryl Gane. Who is Ciryl Gane? Okay, well, he's a former interim champion that was like a second away from being the heavyweight champion. But that's what people say, right? Oh, but who is Ciryl Gane? But if Jon Jones goes in there and beats Stipe Miocic, Eric, what will they say then? What can you say at that point? If he beats the greatest heavyweight of all time, tell me what you can say, because you can't. There's nothing. I think the argument's done now.
Yeah, you can't say anything right now unless you're just a pure drinking the haterade.
And how about that statement that he made in the post-fight press conference? Jon Jones, as you said, not cocky, but says, if I was Stipe, I would not worry about the fire department for a little while, because I'm going to be focused on you full time. I am going to live, eat, and breathe you, and you better be doing the same. I was like, got me some chills. He's like, hey, I respect him. Obviously, that's an amazing part of Stipe's story, right? As he's still an active firefighter. I mean, that's an American hero right there. But when Jon Jones says, you might want to put that on hold for a little while, I got goosebumps, man. I'm like, oh, let's get this fight going.
And here's what makes that fight intriguing. Stipe, we know, has knockout power. Unequivocal knockout power. And guess what? He has the wrestling pedigree to match Jon Jones as well.
That's what makes it intriguing. Right? Because when we talked about the Ciryl Gane fight, we kind of felt the same way, right? If this stays on the feet, Jon might be in some trouble, right? But we both thought that Jon was going to take it to the ground. I personally thought TKO. I thought it was going to be those nasty elbows that he does, that sort of thing. I didn't see the choke happening. But that's it. Now you got something a little bit different, because when we start breaking down the Stipe fight, whenever it gets announced and we start putting it together, that's what we're going to talk about, is that, well, Stipe is not going to have somebody just wrap two hands around his waist and just throw him to the ground. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to nail a perfect inside trip. You're going to have to nail a perfect outside trip. You're going to have to get a solid effort to get him down to the ground and try to have significant damage there. It's not going to play out the same way. So I love everything about this fight. Everything about it.
Yeah, and Stipe is like one of the most likable guys there is, like, out there. Talks a little funny, little word jumbled here and there, but he just seems he's just so endearing to the people that this is going to test how many people love Jon Jones going up against Stipe Miocic. So I'm here for it. I hope it happens International Fight Week, because my calendar is clear, and then John Morgan would get me media credentials at that time. So I'm really hoping that fight happens at International Fight Week.
I love it. Make your way out to Vegas. We'll find you a seat.
Hell yeah. Coming up, a lot on the docket. We say this month is slam-packed. Bellator Lightweight Grand Prix opening round Friday night, the 10th. Usman Nurmagomedov versus the former UFC WEC lightweight champion of the world, Benson Henderson. No better way to kick off this Grand Prix.
It really isn't. I love the fact that this was announced. I love the fact that it's in San Jose, which, I mean, they always get a good crowd out in San Jose. Bellator, obviously, that was the longtime home of Strikeforce. Scott Coker knows how to get things going. But man, just the field for this tournament is absolutely unbelievable. And Usman Nurmagomedov, I mean, I think you got to make him the favorite, but there's a lot of big fights along the way that, you look at AJ McKee, you look at Pitbull in there, you look at some of these outsiders like Alexander Shabli that are a lot of people like. Tofik Musayev is an absolute monster. Mansour Barnoui. So I love, there's some real names in here that I think maybe the casuals might not be aware of, but I think this is the perfect first step for Usman Nurmagomedov. Looks like an absolute future star to me. But you gotta beat names that people know, right? When you beat unknown names, I think the average consumer looks and goes, I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? Okay, cool, he got a win, but who's that guy? I don't even know. You know who Benson Henderson is. You know what I mean? If you're a fight fan of any magnitude, you know who Benson Henderson is. And if Usman can beat this, unbelievable. Meanwhile, on the flip side of it, Benson knows he's kind of winding things down, right? He's only got a couple years left at most. But can you imagine? Former WEC champion, former UFC champion, Bellator. I mean, come on, man. What an amazing accomplishment this would be to run the table in this. So I love this opening round matchup. Really do.
Don't count Benson Henderson out of this fight. Like, one, he's experienced.
Nope.
Two, he drags everybody into deep water. Everybody, just his style of fight. And number three, based off of his last fight, but we knew it prior to his last fight, you do not want Benson Henderson grabbing your neck.
And his submission defense is fantastic along the way too, right? Like, you think, I'll get him out. I mean, there was a time when we really looked at this dude and be like, I think he's unchokeable. Like, I don't think you can actually submit him, and he's partnered up, of course, with John Crouch, who's, I think, one of the brightest minds in the game, that MMA Lab team out there. This is a great way to get things started, man. This tournament is solid. I mean, whoever comes out of this, like, honestly, the winner of this tournament can come out of it and have a pretty good case that they're the top lightweight in the world. Now, I'm not saying I'd grant it to them right away, but they at least would be in this discussion, because you're going to have to go through some absolute killers to win this Grand Prix.
Yeah, that field is tremendously deep. A lot of names that I didn't want to try and pronounce, so I didn't. But if we get Nurmagomedov, AJ McKee final,
come on, man.
I'll make that a pay-per-view. I would buy it.
It's going to be phenomenal, man. I absolutely can't wait. The way this thing is going to play out,
is that a betting favorite to happen?
I think so.
Now, for everybody out there, AJ McKee is coming up in weight to go to 55.
Yes, he is. But he's phenomenal. He's one that, I mean, from the very beginning, I was like, oh, this dude is definitely tapped for greatness. And, you know, he's got a tough road as well. I mean, there are absolute killers in this field. So, man, let's would he be I think that's probably the favorite. I think that's probably the favorite for sure. You know, I mean, but dude, McKee's got Patricky up first. Then the winner of Musayev and Shabli, who those two dudes are people that unless you're hardcore, you don't know who these guys are. You're going to want to watch them because they are incredible. But yeah, I think Nurmagomedov coming out this side is probably I think that's probably what ends up happening. But again, there's some banana peels to slip on along the way.
A card that was very, I guess, a main event card has now materialized into one hell of a card this Saturday night, not from the Apex Center, but from the Virgin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. I assume you are going to be there. Headlined by Petr Yan and Dvalishvili, number 2 and number 3 ranked in the 45-pound division. That's a hell of a fight. Then you just go down the card. This is a 3-headed monster, the way I look. I think any one of these top 3 fights, starting with the rebooking of Krylov and Ryan Spann, then Volkov for Romanov, and then we have the main event that we just talked about. I think all 3 of those fights could be on a pay-per-view main card. And that's going to be this Friday night at the Virgin Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. That's a hell of a fight night card.
It really is. Honestly, like you said, the rebooked edition of Krylov and Spann on there, that made a big addition to it because that was a key fight. That was a main event, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago. So to be here in kind of a supporting role, catch weight, 215 pounds, but I mean, obviously still impactful in the 205 rankings.
Hey, name drop and found out how you found out it was at a catch weight 215. Just do it.
I just texted the UFC official. We'll just leave it at that.
No,
but
like,
Eric McMahon was the one that pointed it out, though. Eric McMahon was the one that pointed it out. I to be honest, I didn't know it was official. I knew they were talking about it, but yeah, you were the one that pointed it out. I pulled it up on UFC.com and said catch weight, and then we found out it was 215. So
yeah, so then he goes, "What's the catch weight out on?" I said, "I don't know, 205, 210, or 210, 215. I'm not sure." And he's like, "Let me text really quick." No, wait, never mind. Let me just text somebody really quick, and we figured it out. So my bad. We'll edit this out later. Sorry, I didn't know that there was a disclaimer.
It's kind of an off-record type thing, you know.
Yeah. But anyways, this fight is Dvalishvili, Petr Yan. Talk me through it. Both have great. Both are powerhouses. Let's just start there.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a key matchup in the division. I mean, you're talking about number 2 versus number 3 in the weight class. I mean, you got to think a title shot is on the line. Obviously, Merab Dvalishvili will not fight Aljamain Sterling. They are teammates. They are brothers. And they have said, look, we will not be facing off against each other. At that point, though, Aljamain has said, I love this guy so much, I'll move up in weight so he can have a shot at the bantamweight title, which I think is phenomenal. So pretty cool to see. But this is a key matchup. And you know, you think of Petr Yan, you certainly think of the striking that he has. Obviously, incredible boxing, man, incredibly well-rounded, though, as well. He's got great defensive wrestling. You think of Merab Dvalishvili, you think of, you know, his grappling game that he has and his nonstop. I mean, the motor that he has is unbelievable. They call him the machine for a reason. He will not stop over the course of 25 minutes. So this is a very, very intriguing fight stylistically. And then, you know, depending on how much you want to go into the stories and the political ties and all those things behind it, Russia versus Georgia, those are two nations that certainly have some conflict. So, you know, that adds to the flavor of it a little bit, if nothing else, at least for these two guys and their home fan base. But, you know, even without that in the equation, this is just a phenomenal fight, a meaningful fight in the division. And it's pretty cool. It's a Saturday night, so I'm actually going to go out to San Jose. I'm going to take in Bellator on Friday, and then I'm going to fly in on Saturday morning so that I can catch this at the Virgin. If you haven't heard of the theater at Virgin Hotels and you're wondering what that is, it's basically the old joint at the Hard Rock. The Hard Rock Hotel just off the Strip is now Virgin Hotels, and the joint that was in there where a lot of events have been over the years is now called the theater at Virgin Hotels. So that's where it'll be happening because the Power Slap live finale will be happening at the UFC Apex on Saturday night. So a lot of stuff going on.
Power Slap. I didn't put it on the thing, but let's talk about it really quick. I didn't put it on the run sheet. I have to admit, I've gotten into the show.
I'm telling you, I'm going to the finale. I'm not even covering it. I'm just going to hang out and watch it. It's crazy. Look, anybody that wants to criticize it, I get it. I totally understand. I've been watching this stuff since it first started happening. Like, we started seeing these viral clips years and years ago from like Eastern Europe, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. I'm not about to sit here and tell you like this is the next great sport in combat sports. Like, you got to watch this because no, but I'm going to tell you, I've watched every episode, man, and I'm going to be there.
Oh, and then you got the one guy, he's the party guy, he's getting drunk in the house, pissing everybody off. Everybody wants to fight him, but somehow he keeps advancing. And like, man, like I've been so into this show. But my wife thinks it's absolutely freaking barbaric, but she can't take her eyes off of it either.
I get it. And look, they are going through medical testing and that sort of thing, which is, I think, admirable. That the UFC and Nevada State Athletic Commission are making them get like brain tests and MRIs and all that. And look, I get it. It's popular to hate it and detract from it, and I get it, man. But I don't know. I'm just kind of the mindset that if adults want to go out there and do something, and let them do it, man. Let them do it.
Yep. A lot of haters out there that want to see Dana White fail just because he's Dana White. That has a lot to do with it. Other than the fact that this is it is a savage type sport. But listen, if you sign up for it and it's the old Roman Coliseum and I'm entertained, I'll throw some dollars at it. It's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. I'm sorry. I'm okay with it. I was okay with it from the beginning. I don't know. And it is funny to me, right? Like, you have people that, there's like entire like Twitter feeds and Instagram feeds that just show like people in car accidents or people getting laid out in a parking lot or street fights or whatever. So like, why is this the one thing that can't exist? That's the argument that I don't get. It's just like, this is too brutal. It can't exist. This has been going on for years. I never heard anybody call that it needed to be, abolished and abandoned. I just don't get that aspect of it. Now, if you want to tell me I think it's stupid, okay, it is. It's stupid.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
I still watch it. I would. Hell no, I wouldn't do it. Absolutely not. But I'll watch it.
Yeah, the only way I'm doing it is if I win the coin flip and then they don't get to go.
That's it. You get one shot and done. I'm out. Yeah. Maybe just go first and then you just DQ yourself. Be like, yeah, knock him out. You're just like, I forfeit.
I accidentally clubbed him. My bad.
Yep, my bad. Sorry.
Okay, to wrap up the show, a fight that we have been tremendously looking forward to. One that broke here on this podcast. Henry Cejudo, Aljamain Sterling. It is heating up. If you even saw Henry Cejudo and Aljamain, they're talking crap to each other. Cejudo's got his baby carrying him on his chest, like a la, I don't know. He's carrying his baby on his chest. It's hysterical. Aljamain Sterling's chirping at him. And then you get to the fight night, right? This past weekend, they have to Aljamain needs to be separated from Henry Cejudo. And Henry Cejudo is just mentally toying with him. And he's just saying, shut up. You're dumb. Shut up. And it's triggering Aljamain. Is this a sign of just like things to come?
Oh, get ready. This is going to be an absolute, the buildup. We've got 2 months until this fight happens. The war of words between these two is going to get crazy. You think about this, right? First of all, Aljamain has his own podcast platform and YouTube channel. Henry Cejudo has his own. So they don't even need the media to be around them for them to produce stuff where they're talking trash about each other. So that's going to continue to build up. Both of them love to talk. Like, Aljamain loves to engage in a little trash talk. Cejudo, he's been bringing pillows and pulling rabbits out of hats and snakes and stuff like that. The dude, and he said it before. He's like, do you know what kind of guts it takes for me to do stuff like this? Like, I go put myself out there because I want to build it up. I want it to be fun. But I realize if I lose, it makes me look incredibly dumb for what I'm doing. But I like to do it. I love to build it up. So, all the buildup is going to be fun. And then you just look into the stylistic matchup of itself as well. We got 2 months till we get them. But as a fight, it's an incredibly intriguing fight because of what they're both good at, right? They've both got incredible wrestling. Aljamain, his back control game is some of the best in mixed martial arts. Meanwhile, Henry Cejudo, of course, Olympic gold medalist wrestler. They don't hand those things out. Both of them, of course, have well-rounded as well. They've added the hands and they're incredible fighters. So, yes, I love this fight. And, yes, the build-up for it is just going to be 2 months long of these two talking trash to each other. They're going to cross paths every now and then. Cejudo's out in Arizona, but he makes his way to Vegas a lot. Sterling's out here in Vegas. They're going to cross paths enough time. They're going to talk some trash. It's going to be fun.
And Cejudo in that when they had to be separated at UFC 285, he's like, "Shut up! Get this bum out of here. And he's just literally in its mental warfare form. We say he's the king of cringe, albeit right, he is. But for him, it's purely mental warfare. So much. I don't know if you've ever seen this video clip. And I saw it through some Instagram reel or something. It was Henry Cejudo talking to like an up and coming fighter. And he says, you need to go do this and you need to say this to your opponent and you need to do this, that, and the other. And the guy's like, nah, that's not really my personality type. And like, I don't want to be known as that. And he goes, then you don't want to be known as a champion. You don't want to be known as somebody who will do whatever it takes to become a champion. That's what you don't want to be then.
I love it. I love to hear that, man. Look, Cejudo is a brilliant mind, and we're starting to see more of it, right? He's starting to put a lot more content out there, showing him like in the coaching room. I mean, people have been talking about it for years about just his understanding of the game, not only from a tactical perspective, but just, a promotional perspective, a psychological warfare perspective. I mean, he really does understand fight sport as well as anybody. And I love to hear that. I haven't seen that clip, but that's phenomenal. And it's 100% true, man. You got to do everything. It's just,
if it gives you the 1% edge by pissing your guy off, then as the champion who you are willing to do anything it takes to accomplish your goal, which we know Henry Cejudo is. He's an Olympic gold medalist, for crying out loud. Then Henry Cejudo is going to do it. And he was trying to implore this other guy you can't stop here. You need to take your opponent over the edge. You gain every advantage you can. And we're seeing him do it with Aljamain Sterling right now.
The greatest example of this is to me, and the one that's the most known is Conor McGregor. I mean, you look at what he did to Jose Aldo. I mean, Jose Aldo was so upset by the time they went in there. He just rushed forward. And what is Conor trying to do? He's trying to set up the counter left. Well, guess what happens if you come running straight at him, right? He's going to set up the counter left and nail it. And he did that. Eddie Alvarez, man. Eddie Alvarez was doing such a good job of really, just kind of deflecting everything and not caring about the quotes and not worrying about anything. And then we all saw it in New York that week at the press conference. Conor finally got to him. He finally got in his head, and you could see Eddie break. And in the media that we were all there, we were just like, uh-oh, he just got him. Like, he just got him right there. And once you're out of that mindset, because you're angry, it's a weirdest thing for anybody that doesn't understand. Like, you might think as a fighter, you want to be as pumped up and angry and mad as you can because this is a physical combat skill and you got to be angry and come in with a chip on your shoulder. But you don't, because that's when the mental side of it all goes out the window, because all you're thinking is about that frustration, that anger, and how you're just going to make this dude pay. And you're not thinking about game plan, and you're not thinking about tactics, and you're not observing all the things that you need to observe in what is a very chaotic sport. So, it's going to be interesting to watch this all play out between these two.
I'm excited for the next couple months. I'm excited for the King of Cringe. I'm excited for this fight to finally happen. And I want everybody to acknowledge that it broke right here on this show.
Yes, it did. Yes,
it
did.
My man, John Morgan. You can follow him on Twitter at JohnMorgan_MMA. Follow me, E_Mac Life. Big week ahead. A lot of fights coming outside of the obvious. You got anything special planned?
No, it's a busy week, man. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I'm leaving to go to San Jose to cover that Bellator card, man. I'm really excited for that Grand Prix. It's kicking off the Grand Prix, which I think that's going to be a fun, tournament to follow all year long. And then, like I said, coming back and got the double feature on Saturday in Las Vegas. So it's going to be a busy weekend, but nothing I would rather be doing.
Sounds good. I'm fresh off the heels. Just flew in from Orlando over the weekend. I had to do a basketball, an NBA basketball game out there for the Orlando Magic. I'm back. I'm a little tired.
You do just flew in from the NBA game. Like,
I'm tired, man. I'm tired. I haven't seen my kids in 36 hours. You know how it is. Like, you're just I got to get to the next thing. Got to record the podcast. But now I'm going to go home. I'm going to go see my kids, pick them up from school. I'm excited, and then start grinding again an hour later. So
I love it. That's what we do.
Well, with that being said, this was a really fun episode. Undeniable, Jon Jones is the greatest of all time. Both of our opinions. If you think differently, engage us on Twitter, and John Morgan will tell you why you are wrong. And then if he doesn't, because he's too nice of a guy, I sure as hell will.
I will suggest nicely why I believe you're incorrect about your opinion.
Hey,
Eric
man,
will just tell you you're wrong.
Stats don't lie.
That's it.
So they say, facts don't care about your feelings. Neither does the GOAT discussion of Jon Jones. But with that being said, we thank you for listening to the podcast. Go ahead, check us out on our archives. You can see us on YouTube. Listen to us, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast needs. We will be there. Till next week, for Jon Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.